Let's bring in NHL Network insider Elliotte Friedman. Elliotte, I'll ask you the same question I asked EJ off the top. He spoke to Steve Mears. Steve Mears, who's in the booth for the Pen, said he had not heard a whisper of this. Did you at all?
No, I'm supposed to be this great insider, Jackie, but it caught me as much by surprise as I think Steve Mears and everybody else was caught by surprise. No, I didn't see it coming. I didn't realize that this was something that Jim Rutherford was considering. I think there's a couple of things at play here. First of all, his contract was up at the end of the season, and I don't think the Penguins had made any decisions about his future at this point in time. I think a lot of teams right now are in situations where they're kind of seeing where we go financially and what happens with the pandemic. But I also don't think they decided that he wasn't coming back. I think this was a conversation that really hadn't happened yet in terms of his future. I had heard some rumors today that maybe there were some disagreements on parts of on the direction of the franchise. Now, I've had some people saying to me that was the case. I had other people disputing that to me. So, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. I just think that also, if you've seen some of Jim Rutherford's quotes today, and Pierre LeBrun had a couple of them out there, I think it's a situation where he's going to sit back and see, A, am I going to retire? Or B, am I going to continue to do this? So I do think, Jim Rutherford was at least at a point where he was going to consider whether or not he wanted to continue being an NHL GM, and whether it was philosophical disagreements or just looking at his own future. He just decided that now was the time to step back and look at it.
Elliotte, can we rule out any kind of health or family issues in all this? It sounds like from what you've been saying that we can. Obviously, fans be concerned. I mean, we don't want anybody to have any issues in their life, obviously. Can we rule that out, and this was just something that had to do with something other than a personal issue or an illness?
Yes, EJ, we can. David Morehouse, the president of the Penguins, took pains at the top of his conference call today to come up and say that this was not a health-related issue, that Jim Rutherford was healthy. And I can't remember the exact line he used, but it was basically, I bet he's healthier than most of you on the call. Like, that was it's kind of what he said. So it wasn't exactly that, but it was along those lines. It was pretty funny. And, actually he said that when the announcement first came out, he got, like, his phone blew up with people asking if Rutherford was okay. So before he started taking any questions, he wanted to clarify that this was not a health-related situation. I think that, and I think we're all kind of caught by surprise. Like, for example, they signed a defenseman today, Yannick Weber, who last played in Nashville, and, Rutherford was involved in the negotiations. So it really caught people by surprise. It just sounds to me like, for whatever reason, he just thought, he's been there 7 years, he's had enormous success. He just thought it was time.
Elliotte, we talked about the window possibly getting smaller for the Pittsburgh Penguins as far as championships. Still have that high-end talent, and Jim Rutherford kind of in the offseason added to the understanding that this could be, the next year or two, our only opportunity to win a Stanley Cup moving forward. But looking at the Penguins right now, still 4-2-1, yet it doesn't seem they've played very well. Where do you think they're at right now in the season and moving forward?
Well, Ken, I'm probably very similar to you. I don't think they've looked great, but sometimes it looks. You look at it and you say, "Well, you are," as Bill Parcells said, "You are what your record says you are." And right now, their record says that they're a playoff team. Malkin hasn't looked great. I think a lot of people have looked at him and said, okay, when's he going to get going? But, they lost their first two games and everybody thought the bottom was going to fall out on them. And look where they are as you guys show the scoreboard. I think they feel they could be better. They're waiting as we do this for results on Brian Dumoulin, and they're concerned about that. Like, they signed Weber, and Dumoulin, if he's out for any period of time, that's a huge loss for them. But I think the other key is what the organization thinks. And Morehouse made it very clear on his conference call today, this is not a rebuild. They are in win now mode. So it doesn't necessarily matter what we think. It matters what the guys signing the paychecks think, and they think they're in it to win it.
Elliotte, what's your sense of what's going on with interim GM Patrick Allvin? Is this sort of just a solution for now, or do you see him possibly becoming the permanent general manager of this team?
Well, what I think he's going to have, Jackie, is he's going to have a chance to at least sit in the chair and say, all right, like, this is basically a trial run for him. Like, the Penguins have said they're going to open up the job, and I think they are going to be in a situation where they're going to invite people to apply. Like, somebody I know whose contacts around the league was just saying that how many people do you think have called the Penguins already looking for work and said, what are you guys thinking? So I wouldn't be surprised if they try to add some experience to their front office. Just in the short term, maybe not as GM, but just somebody who's kind of been around. But I do think they are going to look for a permanent person probably after the season. You've heard Jason Botterill's name. He's in Seattle now. I'm sure you're going to hear Tom Fitzgerald's name. He's in New Jersey, but although he's got a term deal with them, he has a one-year deal currently to be the GM. I'm sure there's going to be a ton of interest from other people about what they're going to do. I think their goal is to contend, which leads to me more experience. But the one thing that Allvin is going to have right now is a runway. And sometimes people get into that job and they take it. So it's his opportunity for now, although they're definitely going to have a search, Jackie.
Elliotte, what's your feelings on the circumstance with Malkin and Letang? Because, it's been a little bit of a bumpy start for Malkin. He's one of the all-time greats. He's going right into the Hall of Fame. We know all that, and certainly Chris Letang is on that kind of path as well. But we looked at, just before you joined us, their contracts expire at the end of next year, and there's some decisions that are going to have to be made there. What do you think the future looks like for those two guys in particular? I guess it's hard to read that, but that's a lot of money and a lot of commitment to make to two guys that are getting older and are not as productive as they once were.
Yeah, I look at that and I say that, first of all, like with Letang, I always look at his health. I mean, that guy is a gamer, the dictionary definition of a gamer. He loves hockey and he plays hard. His body has been through a ton. And that's the only question I have is he going to be, in a year and a half from now, is he going to be healthy enough to continue? That's the only, I have no doubt he'll want to continue, but the state of his body is the only question I have for him. For me, Malkin, and, I like Phil Esposito's old line. We could all be hit by buses tomorrow, so everything could be changed. The one thing I just have always felt about Malkin, would there ever be any consideration he'd ever want to play somewhere else? Yeah. You watch, they have, him and Crosby, they've won 3 Stanley Cups together. They've been great for each other. They're both going to the Hall of Fame. But, sometimes the way you look at them when they play, when the other one's not there, it's almost like they kind of like the spotlight. So that's the one thing I've always wondered about Malkin. Would he want to go somewhere else where just try it? And Pittsburgh really protects him. The organization's always cared about him, and I always say be careful what you wish for. But that's the one thing I've always wondered about Malkin. Would you ever want to try something else?
Well, I guess we'll have an answer to that question in the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Time will tell. And that'll go by faster than we all think it will, I'm sure.
Like.
If I've learned anything in this life. But, Elliotte, thank you for the time. We appreciate your insight on news that literally just broke a couple of hours ago. So have a great day. Thanks for doing this, and it's always a pleasure.
My pleasure, guys. Have a great afternoon.